Hi everyone! Today we're going to be talking about making enamel pins with manufacturers. We're going to be talking about the process, the things that needs to be set up before you reach out to a manufacturer, and then also any tips and tricks. Okay, so I'm definitely still new in this pin making world. I've only used a manufacturer 2 times right now. One was the 2 pins that I made in I think end of 2021 or early 2022, and then again just recently in 2023 I made a total of 11 pins, and both of them were 2 different manufacturers. I definitely learned a lot with both of them, and I feel like I'm going to continue to learn more as I make more pins. Okay, so when I was doing research on how to make enamel pins, I feel like there weren't a lot of videos or instructional videos on how to do that, of what to send to manufacturers, what to look out for when it came to manufacturers, any tips and tricks. So I feel like because of that, I wanted to make this video to help any newbies like me be more successful when it comes to making your first enamel pin. Okay, so let's start with just the process itself. So before you even reach out to a manufacturer, you have to have a design, have an idea, and it should be drawn out. It should be in the simplest form, basic colors, no shading, just an outline. And once you have those designs ready, that's when you can go to a manufacturer. Okay, so once your designs are ready, you reach out to a manufacturer. For me, I use Alibaba just because I've noticed a lot of other artists that I've been following use Alibaba for the best price and the best quality. I'll link over here the video that I made when it came to looking for a good manufacturer on Alibaba, and some of the tips and tricks that I have learned to look out for when looking for a manufacturer. So you can also go through a third-party supplier or a middleman person like Wizard Pins, who is domestic in the US. It's great because they handle everything and you just literally send them design, they send you back a proof, and that's it. It's very quick and easy. Whereas if you use Alibaba, there's a lot of back and forth and testing and learnings to find the best supplier for you. With Wizard Pins or a third-party supplier, that's already taken care of. They've already found the best manufacturer that works for them. The downside of using a third-party supplier is that they tend to be more costly just because they take care of everything for you. Okay, so while I am searching for the perfect manufacturer for me, I tend to talk to multiple different manufacturers just to find the best quote. And usually manufacturers ask for a couple of things. They look up for the mock-up of your designs, the size in which you would want your pins, and there are a few options. They range from half an inch to I think 2 inches, if not bigger. I usually do 1 inch just because I think it's like the perfect size for me, and it's honestly less costly from 1 inch to 1.5 inch. They also ask for details like what kind of material you want, whether it's gold, rose gold, silver, black nickel, etc. And then they're going to ask for how you want the backing of your pin, whether it's a rubber stopper. I tend to like the butterfly clip, but there are other options out there as well. And that all comes to the cost of the pin itself. Additional features are things like if you want it to be glow in the dark, translucent, if you want a back stamp on your pin. I have never done a back stamp before, but I've heard someone tell me that you should, just because you tend to have your branding on like the backing card of your pin, and no one really keeps the backing card of the pin, so it's better to have your logo on the pin because no one's gonna remember what brand they got this pin from. Okay, so after you provide all those details, they usually come back with suggestions of the number of colors that you're going to be using for your pins, whether the sizing will fit with your pin, because for me, I had some very detailed pins with some wording, and they suggested that I go up a size on one of them just because it's not going to be clear. So once you narrow down to the one manufacturer that you want to work with, whether it's because of price or because of quality, after you narrow down, that's when they start working on the proof. But before that, the two manufacturers that I've worked with required a portion payment before they moved on to the final proof. I don't know if it's a standard thing that they do, but the last two suppliers that I did require half of the payment before moving forward. So within the final proof, that's when they would provide the exact Pantone colors that they would be using on the pins. For both manufacturers, they use Pantone colors versus other like hex colors or other naming conventions for colors or other color identifiers. Both use Pantone for me, so I think it's a standard in the industry to use Pantone color ID codes. So this is the portion of the process where you really have to double check the proof, make sure every detail is correct, making sure if you have text in your print that they look clear, all the colors are correct, the sizing is correct. If you have any cutouts, make sure to put an X mark instead of leaving it blank, because sometimes they will just color it white versus making a cutout of it. So you want to make sure every single detail of the proof is how you want it, because they will move on forward to making the pin from this proof, and it will be very costly if you want to undo something or make them redo something. For example, I didn't like the color of one of my pins, and so I asked them if they could recolor it or make it a different Pantone color, and lo and behold, they already made all of the pins for that design, and they cannot just redo it. They can't just make a new batch. If they were going to do so, they would have to require you to pay a little bit more, just because they have to pay for the supplies and also the workers that are going to redo your pins. So definitely double check everything in the proof before making the final pin. In terms of timeline, it could go pretty quickly or pretty long depending on, I think, your experience and also the time period that you decide to make these pins. So it was a little bit long for me just because I requested pins like I think end of December, which is around Christmas time, and I didn't get the pins until mid-Feb. It's also Chinese New Year where I'm getting my pins from, so that is also a consideration that you have to think about when choosing a supplier and when you want to work with them. I would say once you submit your designs to a manufacturer, they're pretty quick when it comes to giving you a quote, if probably like within a few hours to a couple of days. So it's very easy for you to narrow down the manufacturer that you want to work with. After that, I want to say having them send a final proof. I've had the experience of them sending me the final proof within that week, if not the next, and then depending on if there are readjustments that you have to make, it could take about a week to just finalize everything. But again, it's very difficult to say because I'm here in the United States and they're in China, so there's definitely a time difference. So when I'm working in the morning, it's their nighttime, so I have to wait for the answer like that in 12 hours, basically. So there's a bit of a lag there, but ultimately it took about 1 or 2 weeks for the final proof to be completed to what I like. And then after that, it goes into production, and that could take about 2 or 3 weeks. But again, it really depends on the supplier and the bandwidth that they have. And you have to really consider that you're not their only client. They might have big brands that they're working with. They could be working with like Walmart or something. And so, of course, they would prioritize the bigger brands, those who are buying bigger quantities over you if you're buying in smaller batches. So definitely plan accordingly to the launch date. In terms of shipping, mine was pretty quick. I think it was like 2 days. I got the notification that they shipped it out on a Tuesday and I got it on Thursday. So I was very surprised about that just because I thought it would be a little bit longer being that it's international. But my supplier was pretty quick on that. So if I'm going to be using this manufacturer again, I'm going to note that they ship pretty quickly but have a longer production time. So definitely plan your launch dates accordingly if you have one, noting that it takes probably a month or two for your pins to be completely made. Okay, now let's talk about some tips that I have for new pin makers who are working with manufacturers. So for one, have a very minimal pin. Have a very minimal pin in both detail and colors. So starting off with colors, the more colors that you have, the more that you're going to be paying. So I like to keep mine maybe 4 or 5 colors, and that usually doesn't cost too badly for me where I can't make a profit out of my pins. And then 2, keep your pins not super detailed. That's not to say you can't have detailed pins. It's more of that it's hard to find a manufacturer that can accommodate to your designs in a first pass. Like I think it'll take a few, at least like the first manufacturer that I had, it definitely couldn't handle the design that I wanted just because it was a little bit more detailed. But the second manufacturer that I found definitely could. So it takes a lot of testing and learning to find the right manufacturer that can make your designs come to life. But also, I think having a more detailed pin, it makes the pin less clean, if that makes sense, just because there are a lot of lines involved. Okay, so the last tip that I have is asking for photos of other products that they've made. And I know that they have photos on their website or their supplier page, but I think it's necessary to ask for pictures of similar items that you're trying to make, or similar design that you're trying to make, just because it gives you a better picture of how your own pins are going to look like. Because I feel like the ones on their website is so like, they're so stylized, they're so photoshopped, and I feel like the first manufacturer that I used, they had really, really good photos, but it definitely didn't look like the pins that I received. For example, if you have a pin that has a lot of text, maybe ask for a pin that has a lot of text just to have a better idea of how your pin is gonna look like, because I feel like there are a lot of really good photos on their supplier page, but not a lot that is going to look like what I'm trying to make. And I feel like there are a lot of times that I actually turned down a supplier just because they weren't specializing in having heavy text in their pins. That is it for this video. I hope you enjoy learning about making enamel pins when working with a manufacturer, and that it encourages you to work with the manufacturer yourself and make pins yourself. But until next time, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this.